I never thought I'd be the kind of person who ends up crying in a courthouse bathroom stall, clutching my own shaking hands, and wondering how the hell I got there. I used to think family meant something permanent, something sacred. But when money, pride, and resentment get involved, blood starts to feel like just another form of currency. My dad wasn't always like this. Or maybe he was, and I just didn't see it. Growing up, he was the kind of man everyone respected. A small-town contractor, tough as nails, loud, confident, the kind of guy who fixed things before you even knew they were broken. To me, he was larger than life. I wanted to be just like him. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to drive, how to work hard, how to never depend on anyone. But the older I got, the more I realized those lessons came with an asterisk. Never depend on anyone actually meant never challenge me. When I was 16, my parents' marriage fell apart. My mom finally left after years of being the quiet peacekeeper, the one who held everything together while my dad controlled the whole house like a general. I remember her packing her things silently, while he stood in the doorway, yelling that she was nothing without him. I stood there frozen. I didn't say a word. I didn't go with her either. He made sure of that. He told me she didn't care about me, that she'd left us for good, that real family doesn't abandon you. I believed him. God, I hate admitting that. But when you're a scared teenager and your dad's the only one putting food on the table, it's easy to mistake control for love. Fast forward 10 years. I was 26, married, and running the family business that I'd practically built from the ground up. My dad had started it, sure, but by then I was the one keeping it alive. I handled the books, the clients, the workers, everything.
He was supposed to retire.
We even agreed that he'd keep a share, but I'd run things day to day. At least, that's what I thought. Then the betrayal started small. A missing check here, a strange loan there. He'd take money out of the business account without telling me, always with some excuse about unexpected expenses. When I tried to ask about it, he'd blow up, accuse me of being ungrateful. I'd end up apologizing every time. It's embarrassing now to think how often I folded just to keep the peace. The real nightmare started when I told him I wanted to put my wife on the business payroll. She'd been helping me manage the clients, and I wanted her to have a real stake. That's when he lost it. He said, "No woman is getting her name on my company." I told him it wasn't his anymore, that it was ours. That one sentence broke something between us permanently. 2 weeks later, I got served. He was suing me. My own father was taking me to court, claiming I'd stolen the business from him, that I'd committed fraud, that I'd cut him out unfairly. He wanted everything. The company, the house, even the truck I drove for work. When I first read the papers, I sat in the kitchen with my wife and just went numb. I couldn't speak. It was like every memory of him teaching me to swing a hammer, every Christmas morning, every laugh, it all turned to ash. My wife tried to hug me, but I couldn't even process it. I just kept saying, "He's my dad. He wouldn't actually do this." But he did. For months, it was like living in a slow-motion disaster. The lawyers, the depositions, the accusations. He dragged everything out to humiliate me. He even tried to get old employees to testify against me, telling them I was stealing money. Some actually believed him. Others were too afraid to cross him. And my mom, God, my mom, she showed up at my door one night after 10 years. She told me she'd heard what was happening and wanted to help. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce.
I didn't know what to say.
She sat down, looked me straight in the eye, and said, He did the same thing to me. He'll burn everything just to say he won." That was the night I realized this wasn't about business. It was about control. By the time we got to court, I was running on caffeine and spite. He showed up in his best suit, with that same smug confidence he used to wear like armor. He didn't even look at me. He just sat there with his lawyer, like I was some stranger. I'll never forget how he smiled when he took the stand, talking about how I betrayed him, how he trusted me, how I'd taken advantage of his kindness. When it was my turn to speak, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the table to steady them. I told the truth. About how I'd built the company, about the years I spent working 12-hour days while he disappeared on fishing trips, about how I'd begged him to retire peacefully. My voice cracked halfway through, but I kept going. Then came the climax. The moment that changed everything. My lawyer handed me a folder and gave me a small nod. Inside were copies of text messages, messages my dad had sent to a supplier a few months before the lawsuit. He didn't know I had them. In those texts, he admitted that he was going to destroy me just to teach me a lesson. He even said, "He thinks he's a man now, let's see how he survives without my name." I could see his face drop when the texts were read aloud. The color just drained from him. I looked right at him for the first time in that entire trial. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Then the judge asked if I had anything to say. I stood up, looked at my dad, and said the two words that had been sitting on my tongue for months. Checkmate, Dad. It sounds dramatic, maybe even petty, but in that moment, it wasn't about winning. It was about finally standing up to him. About showing him that I wasn't afraid anymore. The judge ruled in my favor.
Completely.
I kept the company, the assets, everything. My dad lost the case and was ordered to pay legal fees. He stormed out of the courtroom before the session even ended. I haven't seen him since. That night, I went home and sat in the dark for a long time. My wife came and sat beside me. She asked if I felt happy. I told her no. Just empty. Because when you finally cut ties with someone who's been controlling you your whole life, it doesn't feel like freedom right away. It feels like grief. A few months later, I heard through a mutual friend that he'd sold his house and moved out of state. Apparently, he's been telling people that I betrayed him, that I turned his own blood against him. I guess some things never change. But here's the thing. I've started to feel peace again. Real peace. I see my mom now. We talk every Sunday. My wife and I are rebuilding the business, and it's finally ours, truly ours. I'm learning to forgive myself for believing his lies for so long. Sometimes I still dream about being a kid again, sitting in the truck with him after work, eating fast food, and listening to country radio. In those dreams, he's still my hero. Then I wake up, and I remind myself that heroes don't try to destroy their own children. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who choose you even when it costs them something. And sometimes, choosing yourself means letting go of the person you spent your whole life trying to please. So yeah, my dad tried to take everything from me. My business, my home, my peace. But in the end, he gave me something else instead, clarity. And that's something I'll never let him take again.